As I sat on the balcony with a soft blanket around me, the cool air in the evening felt good on my face. As it went down, the sun slowly disappeared behind the horizon, leaving a bright path on the water. Next to me was a cup of green tea that was just barely heating. The air smelled like jasmine. After the hard split of his parents, Andrew had just moved in with me. If he was 18, he looked a lot older. His eyes looked tired and sad at the same time, like he had seen too much for his age. It had been a long time since I had seen him look so peaceful, and he seemed very quiet today. I thought he needed some time alone to think about everything that had happened. He called out softly to Aunt Evelyn as he walked out onto the balcony. As I looked up, I saw him standing in the doorway and moving his feet around uncomfortably. "Could I help you with anything?" I smiled, thinking that his offer was more than just a way to be nice. "Yes, you can. Could you help me with the garden? You should take extra care of the roses. This year they've been very picky." Andrew smiled, and I could tell that he was interested. We went to the backyard after getting the tools. As we worked together, I thought about the summers he spent with us as a child. Andrew, who was only a little boy, was running around the yard in shorts and his hands were dirty, smiled at me every time I thought of them. "Do you remember when you did something stupid and fell into the pond?" I laughed, which made him remember those funny times that used to seem so important. "How did I forget?" He smiled and said, "You jumped in to save me right away, but then you fell into the water right after," and he looked at her with the same childlike joy. We laughed together, and I felt like we had a warm, almost family-like connection again. The cool evening wrapped its soft arms around us, and I realized that this moment had become a calm oasis in the storm of feelings that we had both been going through over the past few months. After taking care of the garden, we went back to the deck to enjoy the sunset in peace. I thought the day was over until I saw that Andrew was still looking at me closely. His eyes had a new, strange look to them, like he was trying to figure out something important. A little nerve started to creep in, but chose not to think about it too much. Andrew suddenly walked over to me. He started out quietly, "You know, I've always known that you're unique. You've always known me better than anyone else." I stopped moving for a moment and felt something warm rise inside me. "Andrew, I've always loved you," I said in a soft voice. "You know that." He did not take his eyes off of me. I saw the look in his eyes change at some point. It was like he had made up his mind. He could have kept talking, but instead he leaned in and lightly touched my lips with his. I felt my heart stop all of a sudden. It was short, almost brief. Feeling a wave of warmth run over my face, I pulled away, feeling embarrassed and shocked. There was a weird silence, but I didn't want to break the spell. He said, "I'm sorry," but his voice was full of sorrow and confusion. "I'm not sure why I did that." I breathed in deeply and closed my eyes. "Finally," I said, "it's okay even though my thoughts were going back and forth like leaves in the wind. Let's forget about it, please." Even though he nodded, his eyes stayed on her, almost like he was studying. Even though I tried to smile, I could feel something strange seeing its way into my heart. I got up early the next day. I wanted to take my mind off of the things that happened the night before. I knew right away that Andrew was already up when I heard the dishes clattering in the kitchen. It was hard to hide in a small house because I didn't want to meet him right away. I needed some time to think things over. I got up the nerve to go into the kitchen and tried to look cool. Andrew was cooking eggs by the stove. He seemed to be focused, but I saw that he quickly looked at me. His face showed that he was feeling a mix of fear and excitement. He said good morning too happily, as if he was trying to ease the stress. I tried to sound casual when I said, "Good morning, should we both have breakfast?" He smiled, but there was a shade that was hard to miss in his smile. It was almost silent while we ate breakfast, and I could feel a strange silence between us. I knew I couldn't do nothing about what had happened. I wasn't ready to talk about it, though. In the end, I thought we should do something to relieve some of the stress. I tried to sound as sure of myself as possible when I spoke. "Andrew, could you help me with the old shed? Something needs fixing, and I'm not able to do it by myself." "Okay, why not?" he answered, clearly happy to have the chance to take his mind off of things. We went to the old shed to get some yard tools and some wooden boxes. When I turned on the light, the dim bulbs gave the dusty room a soft yellow glow. We began to sort the tools and boxes and talk about what we should keep and what we should get rid of. Every minute we were in that small area, I could feel the tension between us rising. It felt like he was too close and real. When I felt his eyes on me, I hid behind a shelf and tried to concentrate on what I was doing. "You can't act like nothing happened." He spoke quietly, and his voice was a mix of shame and resolve. My heart began to beat faster as I stood still. I tried to sound cool when I told Andrew, "I'm not sure we should be talking about this." But inside I was raging with anger. Because he was getting closer, his voice got louder. No, we need to, because I think something important happened, and you do too. I walked away because I didn't know what to say. Even though he said things straight out, they touched me. I felt his hand touch mine at that very moment. When I quickly turned to face him, I saw that his eyes were so deep that he couldn't hide how he felt. I told Andrew in a whisper, "Don't," but he moved closer. Nothing seemed to be around us at that moment. I could feel his breath on my skin. He kissed me again all of a sudden, as if he couldn't stop himself. This kiss was completely different. It was stronger, and there was a hint of needing a reaction so badly. As I took a step back, I felt my head spin. For a moment I stood still. I pulled away but couldn't take my eyes off of his. "No. This is wrong," I said. I didn't know what to do or how to think about it. It all looked too hard to understand and risky. Andrew quickly moved away, and the blush on his face showed how embarrassed he was. "I'm sorry, but I just don't understand what's going on." I could tell he didn't know what to do because his voice was shaking. I tried to find the right words by taking a deep breath. "Andrew, we need to make rules," I said in a soft voice. What's going on could hurt us both, trying to calm him and myself down. He agreed with a nod, but his eyes told me he didn't really mean it. He said, "Just let me figure this out." I could feel that this talk would go on, that it would build up like a wave about to hit the shore. On the way back to the house, we were all alone and lost in our own thoughts. I did know one thing, though. This was just the start of a story that would keep going and change neither of us. As the days went by, I tried to act like nothing had happened. I got caught up in regular, planned get-togethers with friends, did jobs around the house and tended to the garden. To be honest, seeing Andrew made me feel uneasy every time, and it was getting harder and harder to ignore. I saw that he was also trying to stay away from people and even eye contact. This made it feel strange and tense to live together. Because of this, I thought we should break out of this awkward loop and do something completely different. "Andrew." I tried to sound relaxed one morning over breakfast when I said, "How about we go to the farmer's market in the next town today? We could go for a walk and buy some fresh food. It might help us calm down a bit." He looked at me a little strangely, and then nodded. "Why not?" He said it in a steady voice, but I could see thanks in his eyes. He might have thought the same thing, that this was an attempt to ease the strain that was almost too much to bear. We took a narrow road through farms and forests to get to the nearby town. It was quiet in the car until I turned on the radio. The music tried to fill the void. We talked about the weather and how long it had been since our last trip to the market, but it never felt normal or like it was going to flow naturally. There were smells of fresh fruit, sweets, and flowers in the air at the market. We walked around the booths. I tried to look happy, but I could always feel his presence close. It was too close and real. It was apple, cheese, and bread that we bought. Even though everything looked normal, I could feel something strange and unknown rising below the surface. Andrew stopped and pointed to the window of an old store as we walked by. "Evelyn, look," he said, his voice suddenly full of life. When I turned around, I saw what he was looking at: an old music box with worn-out gold and ceramic pieces inside. I held my breath for a moment. I began, but my voice was shaking. "Finally," I said, "it looks like my grandmother's." I couldn't take my eyes off the box. "Yes, it does." Andrew walked up to the window and put his fingers on the glass. "You said it was very important to you." I said, "Yes. I have goosebumps all over my body." She did say it was her jewelry box. Things like old letters and pictures were saved in it, even though Andrew didn't say anything. I could tell he was watching me carefully, as if he was trying to figure out what the big deal was. "Would you like to go inside?" asking in a low voice. I said yes, and we went into the old store. It was dark and smelled like dust inside. The box was on a shelf with other things that had been put away. It was in my hands, and I opened it slowly. Inside was an old, dried rose and some letters that had turned yellow. Andrew took a quick look at the letters, and his face changed in some way. "May I have a look?" he asked with care. The letters were given to him, and he started to read them while his face turned serious. He said, "There's something here about our family sounding," almost shocked by what he had found. "Several fights that happened before I was born." I could feel a wave of worry coming over me. I didn't know these letters were still out there, I told him, trying to take them back from him. But he kept reading, and all of a sudden his face turned dark. "Evelyn, why did you never tell me about those things?" Even though he kept his voice down, I could tell he was upset. "You don't talk about this at dinner." I tried to make fun of you, but I could tell that my voice was shaking. "Andy, some things should stay in the past," he agreed, but it didn't look like he was sure. He said in a quiet voice, "Maybe, but I'm starting to see that our family is hiding a lot more than meets the eye. The letters, the old music box, and the tension between us gave me a chill. As it all came together, it made for an unclear and scary picture. It was getting harder for me to keep things under control, but I didn't know what to do next. And when we left the store, I saw that our trip to the market hadn't made things better. In fact, it made it seem more real and scary. On the way back from the market, we were all alone and lost in our own thoughts, adding to our already tense mood. The old letters and the mystery music box made things even less clear. I could feel an unseen weight getting heavier on my shoulders. Andrew also looked thoughtful. He looked out the window a few times, as if he were trying to figure out some deep-seated problems. I offered that we have a picnic at the lake and go for a walk to get some fresh air. The lake had always been a safe place for me to be alone and find peace. I thought the walk would help us both get back on track. We walked on a road that wound around and around tall trees, until we got to the old wooden dock. Andy suggested right away that we go for a swim, just like we did when he was a kid and spent the summers with us. "Let's go, the water is really nice," he yelled with a smile that looked too big and desperate all of a sudden. I laughed as I saw him jump into the lake and make 1,000 little splashes on the smooth surface of the water. He looked so young and full of life that all of a sudden I felt older and less safe than ever. The sun, the water, and his laugh. It all seemed like a scene from a long time ago when things were easier to understand. I couldn't take my eyes off of Andrew as he swam back to the beach. His hair was wet and water was running down his face. He got closer, laughed, and threw water at me. I jerked back in shock and laughed back. I could feel him getting closer at that moment. I was so close I could hear his heartbeat speed up. The way he looked at me made me feel like he was trying to get inside my head. He began, Evelyn, his voice was soft but sure. "I've always loved you more than an aunt. I can no longer hide it." I didn't know what to say, so I froze. His words were scary. He seemed to have crossed a line I was trying to set. I felt panic rising inside me. I told Andrew, "You don't understand what you're saying," to keep myself calm. He answered, "No, I do," and he took another step toward me. "It's possible that you're just scared to say it." He kissed me again before I could say anything. This kiss was different, though. It was spontaneous and determined, and I could feel my body getting tighter. His lips were warm and full of confusion and anger. It was like he was trying to get all of his lingering feelings out at once. At first I was stunned and stood still. Then I felt a strange warmth rising inside me. Everything around us seemed to go away, leaving just the two of us on this old dock, with the lake's surface reflecting everything around us. I let myself feel it for a split second, but then I pulled away quickly, like I was waking up from a strange dream. It was wrong for this to happen. "Let's stop." For a moment, his face turned red with pain, but then he got serious again. "Why?" asking in a low voice. "What's the matter with being so scared?" I felt like I couldn't answer and I didn't know what to say. I finally got it out, "Because it's wrong, you're still young. You're not sure what to do." He took a step back. This made his face look even worse. "Do you really believe this is just a mess?" He said it with anger. "I think I've found something real that I can't ignore." I tried to change the subject by saying, "Andrew, we need to go home." I felt like this chat was getting dangerous. As I walked away from the lake, I tried to hide the fact that my hands were shaking. I heard him coming up behind me, but I didn't turn around to see him. Though we didn't say or do anything, I could feel something between us. It wasn't just words or movements. That shadow wouldn't go away, and it seemed to get darker with each step, pulling us closer to the edge of something scary and unknown. When we got home, the warm tones of orange and pink from the setting sun had slipped across the walls. Like I'd been asleep for a long time, I was tired. Makes you feel a little anxious. I stayed in the kitchen and lazily put the things we bought at the market in order while Andrew went to his room. Still, I was feeling a lot of different emotions: guilt, fear, pain, and something else I couldn't put my finger on. I heard a knock on the door all of a sudden. A loud, sudden knock sounded like someone was there with important news, or a matter that needed to be dealt with right away. I jumped and opened it, not being sure of what to expect. There was my mom, Ella, at the door. The worry on her face made her look tense. "What's going on, Mom?" I asked, because I was feeling more and more uneasy. Eleanor gave me a sharp look, like she was studying every line on my face. She walked into the house as if she owned it instead of being a guest and said, "I need to talk to you." She did this with Andrew as well. Everything inside me tensed up. "Why is Andrew there?" I asked her carefully as I shut the door behind her. She said, "Because I know something is going on between you two." The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I felt a wave of fear hit me right away. "What do you mean?" I tried to act like I didn't know, but my shaking voice let them know. She told Evelyn, "Don't pretend," in an angry voice. "You both have that look on your face that I've seen when you look at each other. Tell me the truth." Inside me, I felt like everything was turned upside down. Mom had always been smart and paid too much attention to the little things. As I tried to keep my cool, I told my mom, "There's nothing between us. We're just not sure. We're both having a hard time right now." Ella looked at me doubtfully and kept her face straight. "Not sure? Evelyn, you know that's not all. I thought I heard Andrew talk to you this morning. He's not trying to hide how he feels." I felt fear rising up inside me. "What did he say?" I tried to hide the shake in my voice as I asked. She said that he didn't say anything specific. But I saw his face when he left. "It's clear that he loves you, Evelyn, which is wrong. Quit this right away before things get out of hand." At that very moment, Andrew walked in through the kitchen opening. It looked like he was serious but relaxed. "What do you want to say?" He looked back and forth between Ella and me as he asked. "Something is wrong here," Ella told him sharply as she turned to face him. "You must understand that this can't go on." When Andrew tightened up, I saw the same spark in his eyes that I had seen by the lake. His voice was calm but tense as he said, "You don't understand. I understand how I feel. This isn't just a whim either." I told Andrew to stop and tried to take charge of the situation. "That's not how you should talk about it. It's not as simple as it looks." Ella quickly turned to face me. "You tell him to stop. But you can't do it." "I can't just leave it at that, though. Andy, I'm going to call your dad and let him decide what to do." I almost yelled, "No, Mom, don't," as I felt my words float in the air. It was too late, though. Andrew stopped moving as he stood in the doorway. "Do you mean it?" asking in a low voice. His voice had a hint of worry in it, though. "There will be my dad in this. Is that all you can do?" "Yes, I am." Ella gave a firm answer. "Because I can see that this is making you both miserable, and I will not let that happen." Andrew looked at me with sad eyes. "Did you know she was going to do this?" Whenever he asked, I could feel my whole body getting tighter. "I didn't know that." I mumbled because the pain was getting worse inside me. Andrew looked over at Ella. "That's fine," he said. "Put my dad in on it if you think that will make things better. I'm going, though. I'm not going to wait around for you to decide what's best for me." He quickly turned around and went out the door without looking back. Ella, who was upset and angry, also made her way to the exit and gave me one last look that was full of sadness. "Evelyn, you should have been smarter," she said over her shoulder as the door shut behind her. I was left alone in the quiet, empty house, and I could feel the cold walls close in on me. Like a thin thread that can't be tied back together, I knew something important had just broken. Whatever happened after that, I could no longer stay away from what would happen.